Joining us now is Aaron Reichlin-Melnick. He's an immigration attorney and senior fellow at the American Immigration Council. He's been closely following this case. Mr. Reichlin-Melnick, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert in immigration law. Let me just ask you, first of all, if I explained any of that wrong or missed anything important about what we understand about this case thus far.
I think you've got the core of it. There are people that may be on a bus or may be waiting to be put on buses, and that the government has said they will not send them to El Salvador or deport them under the Alien Enemies Act tomorrow, but they haven't promised that they won't put them on a plane at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday morning.
In terms of what the district court judge said tonight in Washington, D.C., he expressed that he was essentially sympathetic to the case that was being made by the plaintiffs here, but he felt constrained by how the Supreme Court has ruled in cases of this type already. What do you make of the judge's essentially saying tonight that he was inclined to act but felt his hands were tied?
Yeah, this is Judge Boasberg, the same judge who the Supreme Court previously reversed his temporary restraining order, which had blocked the use of this ancient law in the past. And what the Supreme Court said was that these cases need to be brought in habeas corpus relief. Now, the ACLU has said in front of Judge Boasberg, look, this is something slightly different. We want you to rule that the process that the government is using is wrong. They need to use a different process. But that's a bit complicated. And so Judge Boasberg said, at this moment, with the fact that you have all these other pending cases in different places in Texas, which is closer to where the action is going on, I don't feel comfortable at this point to weigh in. But he did get the government to commit to at least that there supposedly isn't going to be any flight tomorrow.
Right, and we should make clear, Judge Boasberg is the judge that initially ordered the first planes that were heading to El Salvador to turn around mid-flight, and the Trump administration didn't do it. We're still now litigating the consequences of that. But I feel like because that water is under the bridge, and the men who were on those planes that didn't turn around are still, and perhaps forever now, locked up in that El Salvadoran prison, because since then, the Trump administration has articulated with glee that they feel utterly powerless to ever retrieve anybody from that prison. And once they're there, the U.S. washes their hands of them and El Salvador can do with them as they will. And they don't think those people will ever get out. The Supreme Court is aware of all of those things right now. Frankly, the Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals is aware of all of those things right now. If they believe, as the ACLU suspects, that those planes are going to leave Texas and fly yet more men irrevocably to that El Salvadoran prison, if not tomorrow, then Sunday, if not Sunday, then Monday. Do you believe the Supreme Court, in the reasoning that we've seen from them thus far, will be inclined to try to stop Trump from doing that?
I think the Trump administration is very clearly trying to push the boundaries of what the Supreme Court ruled. Because in the Alien Enemies Act case, the Supreme Court was extremely clear. Every person subject to this law has a right to due process. And the Supreme Court said that the one thing the Trump administration has to do, if it wants to use this law, is ensure that people are given notice that they're going to be subject to the law, and they're given enough time, reasonable time, and in a manner as will allow them to actually seek habeas relief. So enough time to actually go to a court and file a lawsuit. The ACLU says this should be at minimum 30 days, which is what people were given in World War II. The Trump administration seems to be taking the position that reasonable time could be less than 24 hours. And of course, these are people who don't even necessarily speak English, who are handed notices in English telling them they're about to be deported under this law. So the ACLU is saying you have to give more time. And if you don't, you're breaking what the Supreme Court said you have to do.
Right. You're breaking the principle that you said was operative here, even for these cases. Yes. Thank you for helping us understand that. Aaron Reichlin-Melnick is an immigration attorney and a senior fellow at the American Immigration Council. And I just want to say, Aaron, that your public communications on this, your statements online, your use of social media to explain some of these things as they've been going. We've got lawyers on staff. We talk to all sorts of different people and reporters and our own team about this stuff all the time. You've been really helpful at explaining the stuff to the public in a way that I think makes a lot more people understand it than otherwise would. So I thank you for doing that, and I'd encourage you to keep that up. It's a real service to your country.
Thank you very much.